Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all esteemed panel members and also members of the DCVMN. You are now here on the CEO's Forum. And so I'm here with good company. My name is Joshua Chu, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the Clinton Health Access Initiative. I oversee our work in vaccines and non-communicable diseases. And today, I hope to have an inspiring session. We've invited 6 eminent leaders in the vaccines world. Unfortunately, one of them, Mahima, is not able to join us today because she is ill, but we send her best regards and hope that she gets better soon. But with the rest of the 5, I'm sure we'll have a very interesting session today. So I had the pleasure of speaking with them before today's session to talk about how the world has changed, but not only that, how their companies have changed. So for today's session, I would like to invite them to speak about where they see their companies in 10 years' time in light of the pandemic, and also in light of the changing business priorities and also national priorities that we see today during the pandemic. So without ado, I'm going to introduce to you the 5 remaining members on our panel today. First, we have Mr. Jae-Yong An. Dr. An is the first CEO of SK Biosciences, and he's also the former Senior Vice President and head of SK Chemicals vaccine business. And he also has experience in pneumonia research and focused on more affordable vaccines in his previous role. So welcome, Mr. An. We also have, thank you. We also have Dr. Mauricio Zuma Medeiros. Dr. Zuma is the CEO and elected director at Biovac, is responsible for research, innovation, and development for the production of vaccines, diagnostic kits, and also biopharmaceuticals. Welcome, Dr. Zuma. Next, we have Dr. Andrew Wong. Dr. Wong holds the position of General Manager at Shanghai Wutai Biotechnology. It's a Biovac subsidiary. And he comes to us with 30 years of experience in molecular cancer drug, antibody therapeutics, and human vaccine research. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Joshua.
And we also have Dr. Alejandro Gill. Dr. Gill serves as CEO and President of Synergium Biotech. And before that, he was also CEO of Biogenesis Bago, a regional biotech company of animal healthcare products and services. Welcome, Dr. Gill. And
Thank you. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. And sorry for the lag there. And lastly, we have Dr. Morena Makwana. He's already the host of today's meeting, so he needs no further introduction. But he's the CEO of Biovac and also the host of today's meeting. Welcome, Morena. So I'm going to first start off with a common question to all panel members. And you are free to send in questions to the chat at the bottom. And if we have time, we'll take questions at the end. But I want to first start off, over the last 18 months, it has been a real roller coaster for all of us, both personally and more broadly in our companies and also in the old vaccine environment. But also, we've never seen such interest in vaccines. Now, everyone here in the world today knows about COVID vaccines, but that has also generated a lot of interest in existing vaccines and also future vaccines that may come out after this pandemic. And so the world is placing a lot of hope on vaccines. We read about articles, blog posts on social media, on television, all about vaccine rollout. At the same time, we see that there are drastic inequities. And many of the members of the panels today spoke earlier today, starting with colleagues from WHO and other international organizations about the drastic inequity. Even in the countries that we work in at CHAI, the Clinton Health Access Initiative. So we are working in 39 countries, but we have countries like Cambodia that have over 70% coverage of 2 doses of a vaccine or COVID vaccine. And on the other extreme, we have countries like DRC, Nigeria, Cameroon, where we work with, that has less than 3% of full coverage. So the gap is huge, even among low and middle income countries, from 70% on one hand down to 3%. So in light of this, I'm going to start off with my first question for Gill from SK Biosciences. So in light of the unprecedented global health challenges that we've seen in the past 20 months, we want you to share your vision for SK Bioscience and how has the pandemic affected it, if any? And I'm sure it has happened in many ways. Over to you, Gill.
All right, thank you very much for, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this valuable opportunity, this CBMN CEO Forum. Yes, like Joshua said, we are experiencing unprecedented many, obstacles, difficulties. Experiencing this COVID-19 situation, I strongly believe that demand for vaccine is going to be increasing dramatically. At least we all know we have to prepare well in order not to experience this kind of same or a similar difficulty. So my point is demand for vaccine is going to increase. That's the very apparent things. So SK Bioscience, when we think about 10 years from now on, definitely we are going to focus on a vaccine in many ways. Especially I'd like to comment 3 major strategic direction SK Bioscience established. The first one is SK Bioscience is going to expand its manufacturing facility. In SK Bioscience existing manufacturing facilities, we have like 500 million doses annual capacity at this moment. We've already decided and announced that we expand our capacity like a triple in 3 years. Recently, SK Bioscience successfully went to the Korean stock market. So with those, fresh money, we are going to invest in manufacturing aggressively. That's the first strategy SK Bioscience has in mind. Second strategy is also Bioscience is going to strengthen its R&D capability. 2 things. The first one, acquiring platform technology like mRNA. Also, SK Bioscience is going to expand its vaccine product portfolio. So, SK Bioscience recently announced that it is going to establish the global level R&D center in Incheon City in Korea, which is very near to Incheon Airport. So, with that, global level infrastructure, we are going to invite a lot of global talent again to increase its R&D capability. Third strategy is globalization. From the SK's business strategy, it's a globalization, but it means we all know all around the world, especially emerging market, we need manufacturing facility to defend ourselves, to defend each single country. So at least minimum level of manufacturing facility each single country has to have. So for the global health and for the business, SK Bioscience believe it makes sense to go to the global market aggressively. So in short, demand is going to increase, a lot of need. So accordingly, SK Bioscience is going to invest a lot of opportunities with 3 major points. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gill. It's really exciting to see that you're going to expand not just production, but also your platforms and also the reach of your markets where you will sell to. One question before I move on to Andrew next. Gill, can you tell us a bit more about how would you prioritize? Because there's a whole universe out there. Can you tell us about your prioritization?
Yes, you mean the prioritization in among those 3 areas?
No, I mean, in terms of prioritization of what types of vaccines or platforms or which markets you will focus on.
I see. Thank you very much. Actually, platform technology, I feel, I'm very proud that SK Bioscience are very well equipped with all kinds of vaccine platform technology. But experiencing COVID-19, I realized that we don't have mRNA technology. So definitely mRNA technology is the #1 priority in R&D platform. And the prioritization preferred market is I would say emerging market. So Southeast Asia area, or Middle East, also Africa. Definitely advanced market like a US or EU is not SK's prioritized market.
Thank you, Gill. All the best with those ambitious plans. So
Thank you very much.
I want to move on to Andrew. Andrew from Biovac. So first of all, Andrew, why don't you share with us your vision for Shanghai Wartime or Biovac as you see it fit?
So Shanghai, thank you, Joshua, and thank you and all the organizers, DCVV, for providing me this opportunity as a panelist. For Shanghai Wartime, actually, it's the international business division of the Biovac. So we are in charge of to help the company go global. So for the vision of the Biovac, actually, our aspire to become the China-based but a global reach vaccine manufacturer. So our motto is to help everyone live a healthy life around the world. So let me tell you what we have at this stage. So we are 20 years in business. Currently, as of today, we have 7 licensed vaccine products on the market, 2 meningitis, 2 pneumococcal vaccine, PCV13, and PPSV23, and 3 meningitis vaccine, AC polysaccharide, AC conjugate, and also AC YW polysaccharide. And we are just about to launch our next HPV2 vaccine, which is under BLA review in China now. So we've been distributing our product for the last 4 years in China and also 14 other countries. So we also in our clinical pipeline, we expect to launch several more vaccines in the next few years. So as I mentioned, HPV2 is going to be launched and also registered outside of China. Our HPV9 vaccine is about to enter into phase 3. Our meningitis ACYW 135 conjugate is in phase 3. And also we have 3 technology platform-based COVID-19 vaccine. It's in clinical phase 2 and phase 3 clinical development. So in lieu of the global COVID-19 pandemic, so we already made a significant investment to adapt the new technologies. As I mentioned, we have the mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccine, which is in phase 3 trial in Mexico and in Indonesia. And also we have our adenovirus-based COVID-19 vaccine, and also protein subunit COVID-19 vaccine in phase 2 development in China. So we are pipeline rich, and also we've been working very closely since 2014 with Chai, with Gates Foundation, to help us to prepare our HPV vaccine, HPV2 and HPV9, to be WHO pre-qualified and for the global public sector market. And just very fortunately, since last year and also this year, our protein subunit COVID-19 vaccine received generous grants from Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also CEPI. And so that's our pipeline. So for us is to increase the global supply to address the global vaccine inequity. So we've been making investment to pre-qualify our vaccine. So our very first one would be ACYW polysaccharide vaccine, and it's going to be pre-qualified sometime next year. And also our HPV2, PCV13, and all the product in the pipeline, we're going to go through the WHO pre-qualification. So with such effort, we've been very thankful for global international organizations like CHI, Gates Foundation, and PASS, Gavi, UNICEF, and all the stakeholders, public sector organizations have given us a technical, strategy, and also financial support over the years. So for us, and I think for our Biovac, our next stage is really, as our colleague from SK Biosciences said, we are going global. So we are in the process to take advantage of this COVID-19 pandemic to increase the awareness of the vaccination and also the acceptance of everyone and to use the vaccine. So market opportunity here. So how should we do it? So we are thinking about it to distribute our product and or even go through some of those strategic regional regions to set up like a vaccine manufacturer operation there, and in order to make our vaccine lower cost and also more accessible in a way. So for us is in 2030, I think the Biovac will be more global, but we are still channel-based global reach vaccine suppliers. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you, Andrew. So it is very impressive that you're now embarking on multiple products with different platforms. Can I ask you, in terms of your experience, as you are now embarking on multiple new platforms that you're using, and that was mentioned also by Gill of SK, what are some of the challenges that you're experiencing as a company because you're embarking on new technology platforms? And maybe what is some advice from your experience in moving into these new areas that you can give to our listeners today?
Certainly, I think to undertaking such a new technology, I think is people and the technology would be key. So certainly, I think be there in the long haul and also have a commitment from a strategic kind of a directive that will be help to make to the end. So for us is I believe new technology would be to prepare the way for more vaccine development in the next decade or so. I think that whoever owns the technology or have the technology will create the opportunity for the company to grow and also to lower the per unit cost of the vaccine. For especially the social vaccine, it's very hard to develop in the old technology platform.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for sharing also your vision for Shanghai Wartime. So next, I want to move on to Mauricio. Mauricio, can you just share a bit about what you see coming up in the future for biofuels? And it doesn't have to be focused on COVID itself, even though that's been a very hot topic during this session. But in terms of your company, what do you see yourselves in 10 years' time?
Thanks, Mr. Joshua. Hello, everyone. First, I'm delighted to participate in this panel, and let me start congratulating the organizers, including the host, Biovac, and the other participants of this panel, and all who are attending this session. Unfortunately, this year we're still in a virtual meeting, but hopefully with the power of our vaccines, we will meet in person again next year, I hope. Yes, well, Mr. Joshua, here in Biomanguinhos, we are focused in several initiatives. Yes, we are. The first initiative was to transfer the technology from a ready-made vaccine in order we could provide a vaccine quickly to the Ministry of Health. Yes, it was our first approach here, and we think that as we didn't have a technology to provide this vaccine, we chose AstraZeneca and the vaccine from Oxford to transfer this technology. It was a big challenge for us, and we managed to quickly to organize the production, scale up the production, and in a few months, we were providing the vaccine to the Ministry of Health. So far, we have produced more than 110 million doses of vaccine, and it was a big challenge. And we are now producing the DS, the drug substance, starting the production of the drug substance, completing the production of all the entire process of production of this vaccine in Biomanguinhos. But the other point is, the other focus is on the development of our own vaccine. With the capabilities we have developed along the years, we were able to start the development of a mRNA vaccine. It's in preclinical stage now, and we will have the help, the support from WHO to start developing the quick development of this vaccine, in order we can share this vaccine with the region countries, the countries of our region, Latin America. We expect to do that, and to have more vaccine to fight this pandemic. We are sure that we cannot focus only on one strategy if you want to have more vaccine in the world. And we all know that the pandemic is still ongoing, and we will need more producers, more production capacity, and this is what we are tackling now.
Thank you, Mauricio. May I ask you, you talked about COVID vaccines and also how you licensed the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. What do you think is the role of these CVN suppliers of the group here in ensuring vaccine equity around the world? Because we see that those who have vaccines have enough, but those that don't have it have very little. And now we're still struggling to meet our targets. I know that there is a target of hitting 70% by middle of next year and 40% by end of this year. But frankly, it looks very challenging because we're not seeing the major shifts required to make that become a reality. So the question for you I have is, what do you think is the role of Biomanguinhos and also other DCVMN suppliers in ensuring this vaccine equity for the very poorest around the world today?
Yeah, you are right. It's a big challenge, and it's also a big responsibility on our shoulders now. Yes, because most of the world population live in regions where DCVMN members have the facilities, and these regions concentrate most of the deaths by preventable diseases. One thing for me is clear. Although there are advances in vaccination in low and medium income countries, the world production is not enough for the entire population. Big Pharma, we know, produce vaccines for rich countries mainly. They make the profits from the private market of these countries. So the production for low and medium income countries are residual. Therefore, the role of the members of this alliance is to increase the production and the supply the vaccines to not only to our national immunization program, because we have a big national immunization program here in Brazil, but also to other low and medium income countries through a network led by WHO. What I think is that this responsibility is very big now, and we need to use all our capabilities, all we have developed along the years, in order to help support other countries that in a in not good situation in terms of vaccination, and we need to support these countries. I think this is a big responsibility for us, and we cannot fail to this responsibility.
Thank you, Mauricio. I want to just remind the audience today that if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll answer them at the end of our session today. So I want to now move on to Alejandro. Alejandro Gill is the CEO of Synergium Biotech. Alejandro, I understand that you have some slides, so feel free to.
No, but I think that I can speak. It's not necessary to put the slides. So first of all, I want to thank the DCBM to allow me to join this session. I feel really proud to talk about our company and what we feel. You know, our company was founded when it was the flu pandemic in 2009. At that time, we make an agreement with the MOH in Argentina, because Argentina was not able to receive the supplement of the flu vaccine on time. And at that time, Argentina has more than 600 deaths because of the flu pandemic. So since that time up to now, we create our company. We have more than 7 tech transfer. We produce here in our facility the flu vaccine, the pneumococcal vaccine, and the HPV vaccine. We have a strong experience in technology, in transfer of technology with multinational companies. We have transfer of technologies with Novartis, with Seqirus, with Pfizer, and with Merck Chardon, and with Sanofi. And after those years, we built our capacity, our facilities, and we are continuously investing in increasing our capabilities. Nowadays, we have the facility to produce more than 40 million doses of vaccine in prefilled syringes, 40 million doses yearly in vials, and now we invest in a new facility, state-of-the-art, for the vial production, where we are going to produce more than 400 million doses yearly. We feel and we believe that this pandemic show us what's happened in the world without vaccines. So we believe that our main thing is to provide vaccines at affordable price for our low and mid-income countries where we belong. And we believe that we've seen in the last 18 months how, working together, we can provide new possibilities to supply to our countries. We believe that it's very important that these new technologies between different companies must be shared, so we can provide in a shorter way and in a good price for our countries to provide the requirements of vaccines that we need, not only the COVID vaccines, but also the other vaccines of the national calendar. We have a strong experience supplying the public market in Argentina, and now we strengthen our collaboration to Latin American countries. Since last year, we are supplying the PAHO tender for flu vaccines, and we are thinking to improve and to supply with another vaccines that we are producing for the future. As you sure all know, a few weeks ago, we've been awarded by WHO with the selected as to receive the technology for the development and production of RNAM vaccine, and we are really working very hard to start as soon as possible to receive the technology transfer and to start the develop and so we are going to be able to provide this vaccine in the near future, not only for our country, but for Latin American region. So mainly we believe that our companies in the DCBM are in low and middle income countries, and we must be able to provide them the vaccine at an affordable time, on time, and in a big range with all the vaccines that we are able to produce, and that we believe that we have strong capabilities, strong quality, and a global product to be shared in all our countries.
Thank you, Alejandro. So it's quite interesting that your company started producing during the flu pandemic in 2009. Can you tell us, based on the experience of producing for the flu pandemic and also now in COVID, what are some of the lessons that you have learned from the pandemic, from both pandemics? And can you tell us how is that affecting your future direction?
Well, you know, what we see in the pandemic is that mainly the regulatory times are shorter, so we have the possibility, and we see that there have been a lot of new technologies that normally will take more time to be adapted and to be received, to have the regulatory approvals. So we must use those facilities to increase our investment in these new technologies and to produce in a fastest way and in a big range to supply in affordable ways for our countries. We've seen that in this pandemic, all the big countries receive the vaccine at the prices that are not affordable for our country. So we believe that if we strengthen the production in our facilities, in our companies, for our countries, the world will be more affordable for all, and we will feel that we are going to supply in a good time, in a good way, to see that not only the big countries of the world can supply on time. That's the big effort that we have to make from our countries and from the DCBM companies. That's what we feel.
Thank you, Alejandro. I think it's a good reminder that this is not the only pandemic that has hit the world, but it's certainly the biggest in our lifetime, and that this will not be the last pandemic we will see. And so as we prepare as a group with different suppliers coming together to the table, that will make us even more resilient when we have the next pandemic. It's not a matter of if we have one, it's when it will happen. And so I think this will certainly prepare us better for the next one that will hit us. So I want to move on now to our last panel member, last but not least, Morena. Thank you again for hosting this meeting. Now, we had hoped to be there in person, if we could, so that we can enjoy beautiful Cape Town and also the majestic Table Mountain in the background. But now we only get to see it in video. But so I want to invite you, Morena. As you all know, he's the CEO of Biovac. So please share with us your vision for Biovac.
Yeah, thanks, Joshua, and also hi to my fellow panel members who, as leaders of their companies, I must congratulate for having contributed in the past difficult 18 months. I think we all know when you're leading companies and you get hit by
I think Morena is stalling.
We cannot hear him.
More
Moret,
important.
we cannot hear you.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Now you can hear me. Okay, just let me know if my network is a bit of a problem. Okay. Okay. So Joshua, establishing a vaccine company in Africa is not easy. We know that this is the least developed continent where access to finance is extremely difficult. So even prior to the pandemic, it was in itself a difficult task. So with our company, broadly, let's put it two frames. So we had a fill-finish strategy where we were working with big multinationals, much like how Synergium just described how they were working. So we also had that, I call it a platform from which we can launch and learn from big companies. So we had that, and and we had relationships with the likes of Sanofi and Pfizer in producing their vaccines locally. So that was an important capability that we were doing prior to the pandemic. On the product development side, we needed to continuously have product development because we know that sustainability, we want to own our own products. We're very focused on bacterial vaccines. We had not neglected viral vaccines, but we had just decided that the first platform from which to launch was bacterial vaccines. So prior to the pandemic, we had a bacterial vaccine focus, and we were developing the likes of Group B strep, and mainly in the conjugate space. That's where we were focused. And as I said previously, that we're also focused on fill finish. So as we were looking towards 2030, and it was quite interesting because we actually developed a 2030 strategy just prior to the pandemic, about a year in 2019. We actually developed our own 2030 strategy, and we wanted to be bigger in size and be a lot more international. So when the pandemic hit, it did two things. So there was a period of, call it a depressing period, because obviously we couldn't develop any vaccine at the time. And a lot of the partners that we were talking to, particularly in 2020, were so focused on their own development that we felt a little bit hamstrung in that we couldn't quite participate in the solution of the pandemic. So that was, call it a depressing period. In 2021, a lot of those opportunities opened up as the products were coming through, and those that were developing started being a lot more comfortable in sharing, and hence we signed up ourselves with a Pfizer product for which we will be supplying not only South Africa, but also for the continent. So to some extent, whilst it started a little bit depressing, it ended up on a good note in terms of how we can participate. The second thing that the pandemic did, and again, both of what the pandemic did in terms of our company, was just to validate or just to solidify the strategy that we had in terms of where we wanted to go to. So as much as we're focusing on bacterial vaccines, but the mRNA platform through the WHO hub is really an opportunity for us, because it's a platform that we were not part of. And through the WHO activities, we will also now be participating deeply from a scientific basis and diversifying not only from bacterial vaccines, but to also add another platform as a platform that will serve us as Biovac and in turn the continent. And obviously COVID is just but a launching pad, but it shouldn't end with COVID. So when we look at 2030, really we are just saying that we should just utilize the tailwind that the pandemic is giving us to expand relationships, because we need to partner and continuously partner, with big pharma, but more importantly within the DCDM. So we need to continue that. And also knowing that the pandemic will end, we just don't know when it will end. And so we cannot put all our eggs in the pandemic basket. It's an important contributor, but we cannot put our eggs in basket. And so we do need to continuously think about routine vaccines, because routine vaccines are going to keep all of us sustainable. And COVID, it appears that COVID is going to be one of the routine vaccines. It will contribute towards that. And that for us is an important pillar to our 2030 vision, which is really to be a diversified, we'll still be in vaccines, but diversified in terms of platforms, but we'll also need to be larger and more international and to be able to supply markets beyond South Africa. So it's really just a validation of that structure. So maybe I'll pause there and get more questions.
So thank you, Morena. I think Biovac and Aspen are certainly at the forefront of production capacity and into new platforms in South Africa, but also for the continent. Can you explain, based from your perspective, what is the role of DCVMN members in helping or supporting production capacity in Africa? Because during this pandemic, we've seen that the continent has lagged behind significantly. And certainly it is not conscionable that this continues. But what role do you see other partners in this room or outside of this room in the broader network in supporting local vaccine manufacturing in Africa?
Yes, Joshua, that's a very important question that you have raised. So when you look at the maturity of the vaccine industry in Africa, and you look at all parts of the world where our DCVMN members are coming from, you know, whether it's Asia, it's in India, China, wherever, you can, if you then take back and you say, you know, the industries were at this infancy at particular time frames, at different time frames. You know, India was not as large as it is today. You know, China is not as large as it is today. And so if we have to go back, I think we have to take lessons and say, how did the other developing countries build manufacturing capability, but at the same time, not only do a copy and paste because we're in different parts of the world, which means that Africa needs to take lessons, but we need to then find an African solution, which may not look like Latin America or Asia, you know, so we do need to find unique circumstances. And I mean, the word partnership is far more important in Africa than anything, because we need all sorts of levers to come through, you know, partnership in terms of funding. And there's an acceleration of development finance institutions that are now seeking to fund. We need to have partnerships with the likes of the purchasers, you know, from a demand perspective, you know, the UNICEFs, the Gavi, and we need stronger partnerships. But also, I think it would be good that DCVM members also take a long-term view, because, you know, as said previously, we're a 1.2 billion population. Yes, 54 countries, so it looks a little bit fragmented. But what you're starting to see is Africa coming together and saying, how can we create a force, you know, to be reckoned with? And 1.2 billion, as you can imagine, is not a small number. And so what I'm hoping is going to happen, that is starting to happen, starting with the African heads of states, that they're starting to say, how can we use the collective force of Africa to make sure that this is a viable market? And with that, which means that the volumes would come to Africa. Already, the large part of UNICEF is coming to Africa. But how do we make sure that we work with Africa, which means that for our DCVMN partners, they must work with the likes of African companies like Biovac and partners in Senegal and everywhere else, in order to either have tech transfer or market access. But I think the fact that companies like us already exist, which means that partnerships can be there. And it doesn't mean that partnerships do not exist. You know, Biovac is already having partnerships with many DCVM companies, and we are expanding those. And so I think we just need to strengthen those, not only in terms of importation of product, but we need to innovatively see how we can make more meaningful partnerships.
Thank you, Morena. So I've gone through all the speakers today, and I want to just do a quick summary before we go into questions. So what I've heard today, actually across the board, are a few things, and I'll summarize. Number one is that there is a vision in which all the suppliers will be looking at new platforms, especially with the advent and the success of new technologies. mRNA was brought up a number of times. And at the same time, to invest in the production capacity to scale up some of these new platforms. That's number one. Number two, I've heard a very strong interest to move beyond just individual country markets, but now we're looking at regional and global markets. And so there's a strong interest to supply beyond your own country boundaries, but to go beyond. So that's also a very important part of the vision. The last part of the vision is enabling, is an enabler. I noticed many of you have said today that tech transfers, partnerships will help you. Either you acquire, either you have a tech transfer, or you will work together to get to that vision. So I think this is really exciting. I think there's never been a time more exciting to be a vaccine supplier. I think everyone from your grandmother to your person at the grocery store will know about what you're doing and is excited about what you're doing. But I want to pose a few questions first to start off our discussions. So again, please type into the chat if you have some questions. But I received a private question, and this question is around something a bit more controversial. Because right now we see that we will have up to 24 billion doses of COVID vaccines by end of 2022. And then we'll have even more after that. So the question posed is that, what are we doing to make sure that we don't have overcapacity, or to coordinate so that we have enough of what's needed? Because there could be a situation where we'll have a lot of certain types of vaccines, but not enough for the world. So this is maybe a rather difficult question, because we are still looking at a situation where there's undercapacity for most countries in Africa, but yet some suppliers are already looking at what will happen when we have overcapacity. So I wanted to just pose this question to anyone on the panel today. Have you considered the situation where after 2022 onwards, what will happen if there's overcapacity, and what do you think can be done to prevent such from happening? Because it's not a certainty that that will affect the rest of the world. So I will pause there for anyone on the panel to take on that question if they want to.
Maybe I can give a stab, Joshua. I think it's a very important question, and I think it goes back to what I was saying that about routine vaccines. And I think probably most, most manufacturers on the downstream side, you can hedge by the fact that fill finish, you can utilize it, let's say, for other, other products, depending on the facility design. I think it's the upstream side that, depending on the technology, where, there are some platforms that obviously don't require much footprint, so the investment would not be that big. I think the challenge would be on building a lot of capacity on the upstream that may not have other uses going forward. And I mean, the whole theme of platforms is quite important, and that's why companies invest in platforms, because whilst you start with one product, you want to expand into others. So I think and I'm sure many companies are already thinking beyond COVID to say, whatever capacity is being installed now, is there use for it beyond COVID? I'd like to believe that. I'm sure any sensible business person is thinking along those lines. So we are certainly thinking about that to make sure that we don't have. Thank you.
Thanks, Morena. Others, maybe one other panel member to jump on that question.
Well, can I go? Yeah. Well, I think first, the pandemic is not over so far. Yes, I think before we think about the question, we need to know that while we not finish the pandemic, we need to think about how to fight adequately this pandemic, because the virus is evolving. We know that new variants are emerging, and I believe that a second generation of COVID-19 vaccines will be important. We need a vaccine that has a higher and broader immunogenicity in order to protect against the new variants, of course. A new vaccine that offers longer protection to all ages, a vaccine that is less immunogenic. So now we need to think that, because in the next coming years, we will need that. And after that, of course, the overcapacity will be used to, I think this is the role of the CVMN members, is to to attack the inequity we have all in the low and medium income countries, and providing new vaccines. I think that the new platforms brings new opportunities for all of us in developing new vaccines, even for basic or for vaccines of routine, more affordable vaccines, as someone said here. So I think this will not be a problem for us to have overcapacity. We will gain from it, and I think the world, the low and medium income countries will benefit from it a lot.
Thank you, Mauricio. Anyone else?
Alejandro? Yep. I want to say that also in this new vision of the requirements of the registration of the products, also we can see that with these new technologies, we can get better vaccines, not only in the COVID field, but all in the regular vaccines that have been using in the last 20, 30 years. So we believe that there's a big improvement that we can make all together, working together in the new way of sharing technologies and capabilities. So the big question, as you said, is not only that what will happen when COVID finish or being used in the national calendars of the countries. We believe that in this new area, we can adapt these new technologies to make better products of the traditional vaccines.
Certainly. And yes, Jeong, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to add just one quick point. Yes, if we think about after 22, like Joshua said, overcapacity, there is a possibility, but I think another important thing we have to consider is after 2022 is probably region by region, country by country, there might exist the most suitable vaccine technology. What is going to be a most suitable technology? One simple example is, maintaining, perfect cold chain for mRNA technology vaccine is, very difficult, right? So probably there is going to be a kind of differentiated, demand and supply for each single country with a suitable platform technology vaccine. I'd like to emphasize that point.
Thank you, Jeong. I think my question actually is flawed in the first place, and I was intentional on that because I think in light of the current shortages, we shouldn't be afraid of oversupply, but we should work together to ensure that the supply does get to the people that need it the most. And I think the points made by the panel members today is very important. Now, if you're concerned about oversupply, we have to look at leveraging what we have for beyond COVID, because COVID, we believe, will be controlled. Then we can use the capacity that we have for other vaccines. And I like the point made by several members that we will be able to make better vaccines for our routine vaccines today. We expect to have second, third generation vaccines that have been the same for a long time. So for example, I look forward to a new generation TB vaccine. Now, with all the technologies that we have today, I believe we'll have an even better vaccine for TB than what we have today. One question that's linked to my earlier question. Now, oversupply may be a concern, but I really don't think that's the issue that we should tackle with. And it's because many governments of the world today and many international organizations are taking on part of the risk of expanding the capacity. So that helps because suppliers who are in this room are not the only ones who are bearing all of that risk. So as you expand, you're getting support from from governments for certain. Getting help from international NGOs, groups like Gavi, CEPI, Gates are all supporting. And so, but one thing that I know that a number of us have here in this room is that we have support from our governments, both financial support also commitments to buy our vaccines, that will help reduce that risk so that we can become even more ambitious. So I want to ask a question of the panel members. Can you tell us about how you went about to get that government support? Because it is important as you make very ambitious future plans, having the support from governments is important. We are here mostly, we are here all as suppliers. We want to understand from the experience of the panel today, how did you go about getting the government support to help you in these decisions that you're making for the future? Over.
Well, I want to say, in our experience, we don't receive financial support from the government, but we believe that it's good if you arrange a long-term agreement with the government so you can supply for a long term, then you can make your budget and your investment thinking in a long-term way. So we believe that it's very important to agree that if we can find long-term agreement with the public market and with the private market, or within the companies that we agreed to partner to develop a new vaccine, that's the best way. Of course, mainly if we can receive some kind of funding from international organization or for the countries, that will be very acceptable for us. But mainly in our case, we built our strategy thinking in long-term agreement with the national government.
In OS case, and certainly I think from domestically get the regulatory policy support, that would be one of the key for us to advance the. So in fact, we do have the vaccine task force that do provide all the support on the regulatory side and also on the resources like animal and like testing and all those, and also facilitate the vaccine export and like the clinical trial export and all those. So that's on the side. And on the foreign partners, like foreign countries, we do receive lots of requests from different governments in their self-reliance program, and they invite us to participate in the program by opening our technology, and also we need to partner with a local partner to make some investment to make a localized manufacture. So certainly I think the global, if the world as a whole, I think all the parties do play a good role and a good partnership will help us to quickly control this pandemic.
Do we have one other person that want to speak about this?
Let's make a comment here. Our case is a bit different because we are a governmental company, institution. Yes, we are totally funded by the Ministry of Health, and our production is entirely directed to the National Immunization Program. And of course, the investments from the government and from the institutions, international institutions, are key for us, especially to develop new vaccines. And this will keep our commitment with the production and development of vaccines to address the people who need more vaccine than the rich countries. Yes, so we are driven by this objective to provide vaccines to national programs and to the programs of the United Nations agencies.
Thank you, Mauricio. I'm being told by my host that our time is up. So first of all, thank you very much to all the panel members. This has been a most engaging and interesting discussion. I'm really impressed by the vision that you've all shared. I think that if anything, what I take out of this is that there are many opportunities that we have seen from the current pandemic. And so as a group, we have to be very ambitious to tackle some of the challenges that we're facing. But also, I think many of the people have shared today that there are many opportunities, new platforms, new production opportunities, new markets that we can tackle. So with that, I want to close this session. Thank you very much. And I want to request Mr. Rajinder Suri to give some closing remarks. I know that we have to close the day, but it's not ending yet because we know we now have the exhibition hall. So the attendees today can move on to the exhibition hall. But I want to first pass it on to Rajinder before we close.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Thank you very much for taking us to 2030 with the vision of the CEOs, and this was marvelous. So my best of thanks to all the CEOs on this forum and also those who could not join, but it's fantastic to hear the worthy comments. So what I would do is to wrap up the day, and I think it has been extremely engaging and enriching throughout the discussions that we have had right in the inaugural session, then the innovation and vaccine space, and now the CEO forum. So I think few words, those have been kind of ringing in the ears. I would only try to summarize with that. One, of course, as Dr. Zuma said, pandemic is not over yet. So this is a fact, and I think all of us need to recognize this, that it is not yet over, and therefore we need to be prepared and in the readiness to face the eventualities that may be associated. I think few things which were important was, one was vaccine equity or inequity for that matter in LMICs, which came up very well in all the sessions throughout the day. And it was very clearly mentioned that supply is not the issue. It is the equitable distribution, which is probably challenging and needs to be addressed. Having already produced 6.6 billion doses in less than 11 months is not a small task by the industry. So the second point which came very loud and clear is the collaborations, partnerships, and that too, as rightly pointed out by the members here in the CEO forum also, that these have to be meaningful partnerships, collaborations, as Morena was just saying. The third thing, which is, of course, innovation. I think all through the day we have been, this has been humming, innovation, not only in science, technology, but also in financing, in regulatory mechanisms, also in tech transfers, in collaborations, anything and everything. I think it is innovation which is going to be the key to success. And one important factor, I think you must have heard all through the day with all the speakers mentioning COVAX. So I think it is important that COVAX becomes a priority for all vaccine manufacturers, particularly for the developing country vaccine manufacturers, because this is, I think, one area where there is an inequity which has been observed. And of course, one very important concept was introduced by Dr. John Nicking-Song, that it is not the vaccine manufacturing which is an issue, it's a national security issue. And therefore, it is from the national, it becomes a regional security, and then it becomes a global security issue. And therefore, the focus on Africa, which is the very much theme of this DCVM and AGM, is going to be very, very critical for all of us together. The other thing is the challenge. The word challenge has been coming because, as we said, that the pandemic is not yet over, so challenge is not over. Challenge is, in fact, much more of different magnitude and scale, and all of us will join hands to make sure that we are able to address that. And one important factor which Bruce Aylward had brought very crystal clearly in the morning was that if it is not addressed properly, you are going to face a loss of 5 million lives in 2022, and the revenue estimate loss could be even $5.3 trillion. So I think it is the responsibility of all vaccine manufacturers put together, whether in developing countries or industrialized countries, to join hands and make sure that we are able to live up to the expectations and we deliver what is expected out of us. And one thing which is, I think, loud and clear in all presentations, all discussions, all panel talk was reliance, heavy reliance on developing country vaccine manufacturers. And I think all of us definitely deserve a pat on the back and also a sense of responsibility to make sure that we deliver what is expected out of us. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a great day, and we look forward to meet up tomorrow for much more better interactions. And now, as Joshua rightly said, that don't go away, please visit the exhibition stalls and you will be flabbergasted to see a lot of innovative things that are waiting for you. Thank you very much, Joshua, and thank you, CEOs, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure interacting.
Thank you.
The day is
Bye-bye.
closed.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.